Alright class, today we're going to be talking about kitchen equipment. This is going to be basic knowledge, fundamental knowledge that you'll need to know for the rest of the semester as we begin to use this equipment in our labs as we actually start to cook things. So it will be important for you to take notes as there will be a quiz after quizzing you on your knowledge that you will gain throughout this presentation. Also, the PowerPoint that we're going to show soon will be available to you for future study on our class website. So if you'd like to study from that in the future when it comes to test time, you can definitely go there to take a look at it so that you definitely know all of the equipment necessary for cooking and also for the test at the end of this unit. So let's get going. The first equipment that we want to talk about are the dry measuring cups. So of course it's used to measure dry ingredients. However, not all dry ingredients are the same. For example, flour needs to be scooped with a spoon into the actual measuring cup and then leveled off. This is because air pockets that can be left in the flour, making your measuring off. Pretty much all other dry ingredients can just be scooped by the actual measuring cup and then leveled off and put into the mixing bowl or whatever you need to put it into. Okay, next we have our bread knife. Of course, the use is for cutting bread. As you can see on just right here, the serrated edge. It's essential for a bread knife to have this serrated edge because without it, bread can be easily smushed down if you don't have the serrations. A smooth edge on a knife could really just smash the bread and really ruin it. Next we have liquid measuring cups. The reason that there are dry measuring cups and liquid measuring cups is because liquid tends to be cohesive. It's attracted to one another, and so dry measuring cups don't really give an accurate measurement, and so it's necessary for us to use liquid measuring cups when measuring oil, honey, molasses, water, anything like that. And to make sure that you get an accurate measurement, you need to put the liquid in the measuring cup, wait until it stops moving, until it's absolutely still, and then you need to get on eye level and make sure that it's at the exact line that it needs to be at. So for example, if you need a half cup of water in your soup, you'll need to go to the sink, turn the water on, put the liquid measuring cup underneath until you think it's about at half a cup, and then you place it on the table, wait till it stops to move, and then get on eye level and make sure that the lowest point of the water is at the half cup line. If you need to add or subtract a little bit, just do this process over again until you achieve the proper measurement. Okay, so next we have cutting board. So of course this is to protect our countertop from the knife. If we didn't have cutting boards, our countertops would just be covered in lines from the knife, and it would be damaged and we have to replace them. So cutting boards are very important for us to use. However, in our classroom we have many types of cutting boards. We use different cutting boards for specific things. So for example, this red cutting board here would be used for cutting meat. So if you have beef or chicken or turkey or anything like that, you want to use the red cutting board. Just so you know that you have to clean the red cutting board more thoroughly than any of the other cutting boards. Not saying that you don't need to clean those well, but with the red cutting boards you need to use bleach in addition to soap when cleaning these, just to make sure that all of the germs from the meat are gone and won't be put into any of our other foods, and so that we can avoid cross-contamination. Okay, so if you're not cutting meat, you might have some produce that you need to cut up, and we use our green cutting boards for any type of produce, fruit and vegetables, anything like that. The last color of cutting board that we have are white cutting boards. The white cutting boards are kind of your neutral board. This is for cutting stuff like bread or chopping up nuts or stuff like that. So, of course, the most important thing to separate between the cutting boards is the meat. Make sure you always use the red for the meat. Okay. All right, so this little contraption is actually called a pastry blender. You can see that you would hold it along here on this wood, and then it has these 5 sharp blades that help to cut fat into flour. So the most common thing that you'd be using a pastry blender for is probably making pie crusts or any type of pastry. So with pastries and pie crusts, it's important for the fat to be cut down and equally dispersed into the flour, so that you'll have that flaky crust that we all think of when we think of pie crust or pastries or anything like that. So these flat, skinny edges really help to help the fat to be dispersed evenly in the flour, like I was saying. Sometimes pastry blenders aren't available. I mean, they will be in our classroom, but if you're ever making a pastry or a pie crust at home and you don't have a pastry blender, or your neighbor doesn't have a pastry blender, then you can use 2 knives to really cut into the fat, so that it'll disperse into the flour. It's not as quick and efficient, but through work it will achieve the same yummy, flaky product. Okay, so next we have a colander. So if you notice on the colander, there are pretty big holes throughout it. That's because a colander is used to drain large amounts of food, such as pasta. You have the pasta is big, it's not going to go through those holes, but there's a lot of water that we need to get rid of, and a colander is an excellent way to get rid of excess water so that we don't have watery pasta to eat. So like I said, it's used for draining noodles or other large amounts of food. Something similar to a colander is a strainer. As you can see, a strainer, on this PowerPoint you can barely even see the tiny little holes that are on a strainer. This is also known as a sifter. So a strainer is used to drain liquids from small amounts of food. So let's say you have a can of pineapple chunks that you want to save the juice, but you also want the chunks for another recipe. So you can place a bowl on the table, put the strainer over it, and then dump the whole can of pineapple into your strainer. Your juice will be reserved in that bowl, and you'll have your pineapple chunks in your strainer that you can use for whatever you need to. Like I said, this is also known as a sifter. So sifters, a common use of a sifter would be for flour, so they can get the chunks out of the flour, because nobody wants to bite into a cupcake and get a big chunk of flour, right? And also maybe like dusting powdered sugar over your finished dessert, stuff like that, because those nice little holes are good for keeping in chunks. Alright, so next is a rolling pin. I'm sure all of you have used a rolling pin before, but we just want to make sure that you know how to use it correctly and properly. So obviously use a rolling pin to flatten out dough. So let's say you're making some sugar cookies and you've spent all this time putting in all the ingredients and mixing it up, and then you're ready to roll it out. So you dust your countertop with flour, you put the ball of dough, and then you start flattening it out, and maybe your right arm is a lot stronger than your left arm, and you're pressing a lot harder on that side, and eventually you notice that the right side of your dough is a lot thinner than the left side of your dough, and that's not going to make for uniform cookies. The thinner dough is going to cook a lot quicker. It might be crispy, while the other side might be too doughy. So of course we want uniform thickness in our dough. So in order to do that, we need to make sure that the amount of pressure that we apply is even, because if we don't do this in the first place and we have to start over, then we've already really worked at that dough. We've already sprinkled flour all over it, and we have to start over. Then the more times that you manipulate and add flour to your dough, it will start to get tough, and your sugar cookie really won't be as good as it would if you would have been more even in the first place. Okay, on to the next one. So this is a meat thermometer. This might be something new to you. Not all families have one of these, but if you notice that the stick right here will be inserted into the meat so that it can go into the middle of it and measure the inside temperature. And if you notice right here, these numbers in Fahrenheit, goes from 140 to 190, all are associated with these different types of meat. So if you want rare beef or cooked ham, it needs to be at least 140 to 150 degrees. And as you can see, poultry is right up here at the top. And poultry, it's essential that you get the correct temperature inside of poultry, because many foodborne illnesses could be carried in poultry, and if you don't heat it up properly and kill those germs and organisms, then you and anybody that eats your chicken can become sick. So meat thermometers are really important when cooking meat and serving it to others. Okay, so next is a turner. Some people might call these spatulas, but we're just going to call it a turner in our classroom, okay? So some turners are plastic like this one, and some turners are metal. So I need you all to be careful, not only in our kitchen, but in your kitchens at home or at your friend's house. If you're ever using like a metal spatula, please never use metal spatulas on non-stick or silicone pans, because they can easily scrape that surface off, and then it won't be non-stick anymore, and your pan will be ruined. So you need to be careful to be gentle, and also to use the proper equipment with other proper equipment. Okay, so on to the next one. We have a vegetable peeler. There's a lot of different types of vegetable peelers, and maybe your vegetable peelers at home don't necessarily look like this one, but that's a common one. Of course, it's used for removing the skin of fruits and vegetables off of your produce. Next, we have a grater. Of course, we use graters a lot to grate cheese, but there's also many other things that we could use it for, such as squash or zest and orange. There's many sides to the graters, and so you can get different sizes and shapes to the food that you are shredding. Okay, and last we have a whisk. So notice that these wires are evenly spaced, and as you whisk the liquid very quickly, the wires allow for air to be introduced, and so it produces a fluffy and light product. Okay guys, so we are going to do our assessment on our quiz. We can review for a little bit if you'd like, but I'm going to go ahead and pass out the quizzes when you're ready, and if you have any questions, please just let me know, and hopefully everybody does well, and good luck.